In this video, I'm going to be showing you how I transformed this Christmas house from Dollar Tree into a Christmas barn. And to get started, I'm going to make the barn doors. And to do this, I'm cutting popsicle stick down so that it will line up with the bottom edge of the house and touch the bottom part of the roof on the edge. And then I'm going to make the rest of the popsicle sticks the same size as this first one. And you're going to need 16 total popsicle sticks to make both of the barn doors. Since I'm going to be putting barn doors on this house, I'm going to remove the wood windows off of the house, and they are glued on there pretty well, so it kind of splits the wood and you can't really do anything about that. It's kind of hard to avoid, but that's okay for this part because we will be covering it up with the popsicle sticks. There's also a little bit of a wavy part at the bottom, so I went ahead and cut that off, and then I trimmed off those two little points on the bottom edge of the house so that everything is perfectly flat. And now I'm going to glue the popsicle sticks on for the barn doors. So each barn door is going to be 8 popsicle sticks, and I'm just going to line it up from the edge, and then there will be a gap in between the two barn doors. If your popsicle sticks didn't perfectly line up, you can use some sandpaper to sand down the edge to get it more flat and even. And if the top of the barn doors did not get perfectly even either, you can also use the sandpaper to sand that part down as well. I decided that I also wanted to take off this top window as well, so I tried my best to be careful to remove this because I knew I wasn't going to be totally covering this spot up, but it did split the wood again, and you could use some spackling to fill in any gaps if you wanted to, but I will be putting a wreath on this part of the house later on, so I just kind of left it and painted over it. And for the paint color, I am using the Crimson Waverly Chalk paint, and I added some brown to the paint as well so that it wasn't such a bright red. I wanted this to be more of a darker, deeper red so that it looked like a barn red color. Once I have my paint color mixed up, I'm going to go ahead and paint the whole thing except for the snow-covered roof. So this includes the two barn doors, and I did give this a couple of coats of the red paint, and that ended up giving us a nice coverage and covered up most of the engraved parts. But if you wanted to, you could use some spackling first to fill that part in and then paint it. Next, I'm going to paint the snow-covered roof of the barn with some white paint. Now I'm going to take some more popsicle sticks and cut these down to make the little X part that you usually see on barns a lot of times. I don't really know what you would technically call that other than the X part, but anyways, I'm going to cut 2 popsicle sticks to be the width of the barn door, and then I'm going to take the other 2 popsicle sticks and cut these on an angle to create the X part. And this kind of just took some trial and error. I didn't really have a specific way to perfectly make this an X, so I just cut the piece down so that it will line up with the top edge, and then I took a pencil to mark where I needed to cut the other side so that the angle will line up with the popsicle stick. And then I did the same process for the other side. I just cut an angle and guessed what that needed to be, and then lined that up and marked where I needed to cut on the other side. And for this half of the X, you do have to cut it down into two pieces. Once I have all of my pieces cut for the X's on both of the barn doors, I'm going to go ahead and start by painting all of them with some white paint. Then I took my Waverly chalk paint in the color Truffle and went around the edges of all of the pieces of wood, and I also lightly brushed a little bit of the brown color in the center as well to give it a distressed rustic look. Then I went ahead and glued all of the pieces to make the X part on both of the barn doors. To give this barn some more detail, I am continuing the vertical board look across the top of the whole barn. So basically I'm using a extra popsicle stick to line it up where the boards would be on the barn doors, and then I'm just using a Sharpie to continue this line all the way up, and I did this across the whole entire top of the barn. And I also wanted to fill in this gap between the two barn doors, so I'm taking a popsicle stick that I cut down to fit in between and using this as a guide to draw on some horizontal lines, and I did this all the way up to the top of the barn doors. And to break up where the vertical lines meet the horizontal ones, I am using a wood dowel, and I'm going to place this on the top of the barn doors. So I'm marking where I need to cut that, and then I'm going to cut that and place that there. And the other half of the dowel actually almost perfectly fit to go in the middle between the barn doors. So I just cut a little bit more off of that, and I'm going to place that there. And before I glue the wood dowels onto the barn, I'm going to go ahead and paint them with my Truffle Waverly chalk paint. I'm going to make a wreath to go on my barn, and to do this I am using one of these pine stems and wrapping it in a circle and gluing the end down before gluing this wreath onto the barn. To decorate this, I'm going to be adding a couple of these mini little pine cones, as well as some red berries that I got off of a Dollar Tree Christmas pick. And to finish up this wreath, I'm going to add a little black and white bow that I quickly made from some ribbon to the top of it. And I have these cute little wood cutouts that say Merry Christmas on them that I got from Hobby Lobby, and I really wanted to incorporate this into a project, so I decided to add it to this one. So I went ahead and attached it to a piece of twine, and then I'm going to glue it so that it looks like it's hanging from the top of the wood dowel. And I think this finished off the Christmas barn nicely so that it looks a little bit more festive and says Merry Christmas on it. And the last thing I did to finish off this Christmas barn was add a piece of twine to the top so that I could hang it up. And here is how it turned out.